100%. I mean, me and Terry have been going together the last 4 years, so it's been fun to get out there and get lined up on him. It was one route they ran where he was kind of like, man, I kind of knew you wasn't going to jump it. He was able to get me on a route and things like that. So it takes you back. Fun to compete against them again, and it's going to be fun to compete on Saturday as well.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
Here, what'd you like from last Thursday and last Saturday, and what do you want to get done? What do you want to see more of, today and into Saturday? And so all of us have those things, coaches included. And so I want to make sure that, coming into here, intentional about what you're trying to improve upon, because there's a lot of spots that we're really right in the thick of it. And so that's why moments like today and Saturday and into next week, they really matter, because it may be the fourth and fifth corner, this returner, swing tackle, third or fourth running back, all of these spots, there's still so much to put into the table. And so that's why performing at a practice here is big. And we put guys in really tough spots in the practice to see how they're going to respond. So although it's not a game, sometimes the practice in some ways can be even more difficult, because we're calling plays to say, let's test this person and see what it looks like.
Donna Hopkins, Pro Football Plus, out here in Miami at the Dolphins facilities. Let's jump right into it, David. What did you take away from this? Let's start with what Dan Quinn said about the number 2 receiver, still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a spirit of competition, right? It's what Dan Quinn said when he first got here. It's what Adam Peters said when he got here. It's what Josh Harris said he wanted to create when he at the end of last season, coming into this offseason, is a competitive team. And the only way you can field a competitive team is if you have competitors on that team, right? And the first place you can compete in the National Football League is within your own squad. And that's what this time of year is for. Preseason, the training camp, is figuring out who is cut out to be a part of your success and who needs to go elsewhere and be a part of somebody else's success. Because at the end of the day, right, like the football fraternity, you all wish well and wish success to each other, but you also know that there's a selfish angle to this too, where not more than success than I have. So, if they got to figure out, or not if they have to, but they have to figure out who that guy behind Terry McLaurin is going to be, because not only is it important to have that number 2 receiver solidified, but that second guy also affects Terry McLaurin. The better that second guy is, the less defenses can focus on Terry, the better Terry can be.
And the fact that the Commanders still have not figured out that number 2 receiver yet. Jahan Dotson, we talked to him a little bit about how he sees himself, but it was surprising that he's still working on the confidence. The things that's standing out when you look back at the film, what are some of the things that's standing out that you see that you like, or stuff that you may want to still work on?
I'm working on my game every single day, just to be better. I feel like each and every day I'm playing faster and faster, and kind of getting that confidence back. And that's a big thing for me, making sure that I'm able to play fully confident in myself and fully confident in my game and fully confident in the playbook. And like I said, that enables me to play fast and do the things that I know I can do.
I mean, I think for any young player, like that's something that's kind of easy, and it's easy for us on the outside to kind of look at it and say, like, we put in all the hours and you had all the success in college, and what we all tend to forget sometimes is these guys who are first-round draft picks, went to major colleges, were big man on campus in high school, were probably the best guy on their little league team, their middle school team, or their travel team, and all this other stuff. So the NFL struggle may be the first real time that some of these guys have experienced this type of struggle and uncertainty about, are they good enough and are they going to fit and all those things. So, I'm not necessarily surprised that Jahan is having maybe some confidence issues, because you have the first season where, he comes out on fire, right? But then he gets a hamstring injury. And even when he first comes back, they're kind of rolling him out slowly, giving him, reps. But it took him, about 3 or 4 games to get back in the end zone and finish strong. But then you had that second year where everybody talked about, how much more explosive the offense was going to be, and how much it was going to emphasize the talents of a guy like Jahan Dotson, and it just didn't come out. And a lot of us kind of look at Terry, and even Terry, like his reputation and trajectory to a lot of people kind of took a hit as well. But a lot of us look at Terry and we kind of give him the excuse of Eric Bieniemy. But a lot of us don't give Jahan that same excuse. And that may be fair or unfair, but at the end of the day, like you look at outside of those first 4 games, it really has been kind of a struggle for Jahan throughout his career so far. And then coming in here, he's had like one really great day of practice, but outside of that, you had the occasional play. He had a touchdown catch today in the red zone drills, so that was good. But, it just hasn't been consistent enough where you can see that Jaden's going out there and targeting number one when they're out there on teams.
And Olamide OZ is one guy that Dan Quinn talked about that has stood out.
Yeah, and that's a guy that Jaden is targeting, right? Like Jaden is consistently targeting 17. He's consistently targeting 14. He's not consistently targeting number one. And when you have a veteran like that, Olamide Zaccheaus has been around the block. Like, he's used to this competition. He's used to having to fight for his spot on the roster and all those things. So for him, this is just another day in the office. For Jahan, like, there's probably a part of him that's kind of feeling like, he's at a crossroads for like the entirety of his life. And when you're young and you kind of think about it in those lights, like that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody. But, at the end of the day, no matter whether the pressures come from the inside, the outside, a combination of both, like the biggest thing for Jahan is just focusing on what you do, because you're a first-round draft pick for a reason. Like, you're not a first-round draft pick on accident. And I know that the Ron Rivera draft history is not great, but, talent evaluators in the National Football League, like, it's very rare that you have a guy who is given a first-round grade by one team and nobody else has a first-round grade on him. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I promise you other NFL teams have first-round grades on Jahan Dotson. So the dude has talent. The key is now turning that talent into production on the field. And in the NFL, every rookie says it, right? What's the difference between college and the NFL? In the NFL, everybody's good. So being talented is not enough, because I've said it 100 times on Locked On Commanders. It takes a lot of talent and athletic ability to suck in the National Football League. So if it takes a lot of talent to suck, to be good, you got to be even better, and you got to be almost kind of a maniacal worker. And, so maybe that's where Jahan's got to get a little bit better in his preparation and all those things. And I don't know. I'm not saying that he needs to get better in his preparation, but I'm just saying, like, that's what he's got to kind of do, is focus more on how do I control the narrative, which is go out there and produce, go out there and be that number 2 receiver, versus worrying about how the narrative comes at me and I respond, because that's not a dance you want to get into.
Now, the other area that I've always talked about is the offensive line. That's an area of concern. Mm-hmm. And the secondary is another area of concern as far as the cornerback position. What do you see right there? Because that's a struggle right now.
Yeah, I don't think Jalen Waddle was practicing. I wasn't watching the Dolphins offense as closely, obviously, as I was the Commanders offense, because I chart the Commanders offense. But I didn't really notice him out there on the practice field. Tyreek, got a good play up against Benjamin St. Juste. And the Dolphins offense certainly did some things. But I think when you look at the Jets practice and this practice, a little bit better from the Commanders defense this time around, particularly in the defense pass rush. And I know we're talking secondary, right? But what helps a secondary that might be a little bit suspect? Pass rush. Yeah. The less time a quarterback has time to sit there and find his receivers, the less that they can go and pick apart that secondary, the better that secondary can look. And honestly, we've seen defenses in the National Football League that make a very suspect secondary look really good, get Pro Bowlers, get all pros, and then those guys get massive contracts and go to another team and then disappear, right? Because, again, it takes a lot of talent to suck in the NFL. So that pass rush certainly has a part to do with it, and I think that this staff and this defense knows it. Like, it's important for them to go out there and do that. We talked to Deron Payne today. He acknowledged that fact. We talked to Derek Forrest today. He acknowledged that fact. So it's no secret, so it's just a matter of doing it. And today against the Dolphins offensive line, they were able to do that a lot more consistently.
Man, we got – I feel like just the new scheme, we've been working so hard to get the new scheme, and we came a long way from when we first came in the OTAs, and I think we're going to be a good group. We just got to keep on chipping at it. And when week 1 roll around, just get after it. I'll say is one of the offenses you hate to play just because they do so much motions and they try to get your edges and all that stuff. So it's a team you got to prepare for, and you got to be technique sound, and you can't let all the motions and stuff affect you. No, I think the group is clicking. I feel like we play together, we be together all the time, we hang out together. We just got to get our minds right and keep the playbook. Don't go outside the scheme and just go after it.
Hey, Derek, a team like the Dolphins that throws so much stuff at you offensively, how do you think that the defense fared today against all the different looks from the Dolphins?
By staying on top of our stuff, being right mentally, seeing the formation, and really just being right with our eyes.
Yeah, it was good to have Derek Forrest back out there. He's been missing for a while because of some little nicks and everything. But it's going to be the defensive front. That pressure up front is going to be the telltale of how that secondary, because right now the secondary, as I say, needs a lot of work. Dan Quinn talked about that earlier on, of the secondary concerns, not the safety position. He likes where they're at with the safety position. And a linebacker position, I think it's going to be all right. But losing McGee is kind of like huge.
Yeah, Jordan McGee was having a really good camp, really good, looking to have a really good preseason. Then he gets injured, and it's hard to tell exactly how far he would have ascended, given even more reps and opportunities. But he was certainly looking like a guy who was a value pick, right? He looked like he was performing above where he was drafted, and that's what coaches always want. GMs, you understand, like, look, if you hit on all your draft picks, like if when you draft a guy in the 5th round, you kind of look for a role player, special teams contributor who might be a rotational guy. Well, if you can get that guy to be a starter, or you can get that guy to be a regular rotational guy instead of an occasional rotational guy, then you're just ahead of schedule, right? If your first round pick can come in and be a Pro Bowler in year 1, you're ahead of schedule, and that's what every GM and obviously every head coach would want. So Jordan McGee kind of being on that trajectory was really exciting. Seeing him get injured obviously is not as exciting, but he's back in Ashburn getting treatment, and I think that's the key for him to be. That's the best place for him to be right now, because he could be out here taking mental reps and watching and all that stuff. They're going to watch the tape, and he's going to be in the tape studies. I wouldn't be surprised if when they get back to the hotel and they're doing their tape breakdown of today's practice that he's on the Zoom and he's watching it via Zoom or something, so he can get a lot of mental reps still, but getting that body right and getting him healthy. Because talking to Defoe and talking to Andrew Wiley, who both had to kind of come back from some injuries this preseason, both of them have said the same thing. Like, this staff is not going to let them on the field until they're 100%, not 98,
They can't afford
not
to.
92, 100%. And that's the best way to do it. That's the way to do it for the player. And the player is going to get frustrated because they want to go compete and they want to go out there and earn their spot, and they understand that. But the best thing long term for the player and for the organization is to do it the right way. I mean, Marcus Mariota is not out here because of a groin issue. Dan Quinn said if it was regular season, he'd be out there. But because it's preseason, he's not going to come out here. He's not going to do that because it's not worth it. And I think it's a little refreshing because, again, you hear a lot of people in the NFL say that kind of stuff, right? But you hear them say it, and then you see RG3 going out there with no business running around the football field, getting tore up even worse than he already was. So it happens in the NFL a lot where people say one thing, do another, but this staff is clearly doing what they say that they believe in.
Yeah, this is the second preseason game going against the Dolphins. It's huge for everybody, even for Jaden Daniels. And I want to talk a little bit about, before we close, about what you saw out here from him, because he looks sharp. Yep. Fullard and all of them on the other side talked about them. Former Commander Terry had a big day. He was, torching Fuller a little bit. But at the end, he fell down, and Fuller wouldn't have gotten that interception. But overall, your takeaways with Jaden as far as what you're seeing from him, because you know what, David, time is running out. The season opener is right around the corner, and I think that this team really needs to put together a lot of things still. Brandon Coleman, not there, Wiley. Those two guys are huge for the offensive line. And as you said earlier when we were talking, you haven't seen the full offensive line together yet.
Yeah, we haven't seen the starting five. Like, the starting five, we presume, is going to be Tyler Biadasz in the middle, right? Sam Cosmi and Nick Allegretti on the guards, or in the guards positions, Andrew Wiley and Brandon Coleman in the tackles. We haven't seen that five. Those five guys are not taking one rep yet together. And that's massive. But at the same time, again, you got to be healthy to do it. So that's going to be the issue. But today, right, you see Andrew Wiley get back in teams, in pads, in a more highly contested practice with the Dolphins. He wasn't out there for every first-team rep, right? He rotated. Trent Scott got some burn. Chris Paul got some burn. Cornelius Lucas at left tackle. I think Trent Scott got some left tackle reps as well. But the difference just from Chris Paul being the full-time starting right tackle and
I've been talking about Chris Paul.
Trent Scott, whoever being the full-time starting left tackle, to Andrew Wiley and Cornelius Lucas, that difference alone was big. Like, that's a wide berth. That's a really big gap. And that's the problem with offensive line in the National Football League, is it's really hard to find really good offensive linemen. Like, there aren't, I've always said, there's not 32 starting left tackles in the NFL.
A diamond in the rough.
So if you have the 28th ranked left tackle, he's probably not actually considered like starting caliber. So now his backup is even worse, right? And that just kind of shows how hard it is to really hold that line from an NFL standpoint. So you see that improvement in what Jaden Daniels has already proven. In my mind, he's already proven. I know he's only played one series, one preseason game. But if he has time, and I'm not talking 8 seconds. You'd love 8 seconds, right? But I'm talking if he's got 2.5 to 3.5 seconds, he has the ability to make the right decision and put his team in the right position. Because even out here on the practice field, there was one series in the team session today where he got practice sacked twice, right? No contact, but he got sacked twice. you can see him, the recognition in the pass rush, and in the real game, those moments you think, okay, that's probably where he's going to take off. But in the practice, he stands back there because what do? They let the defender run by you. You still have your opportunity to throw the ball, do all those things. So
But
you get a throw
he
in.
would have been sacked in the real
Right,
game.
but in a real game, it would have been a sack, or it would have been Jaden Daniels using his athleticism. Now, that's a great weapon to have, but you don't want him to live off of that. But when he can, I mean, today, even with 2 interceptions and 2 sacks, he's 11 for 16, by my charting. So still a very good, productive day. 5 touchdowns in the red zone during the red zone drill. So you love seeing red zone scoring. That's something that Washington fans are going to love seeing. But again, that O-line's got to be able to do it consistently week in, week out. They didn't do it as much against the Jets. A much improved O-line did it today against the Miami Dolphins. We'll see what happens Saturday. But if that trend continues and then gets even better when Brandon Coleman gets out there, then, hey, look, right now I've still got them at about 6 or 7 wins, but the fans who are kind of screaming, 10, 11, 12 wins might feel a little bit more bullish if that kind of thing can happen.
I think at this point, you don't put no numbers on how many games this team is going to be winning because there's a lot to be said yet. And it was smoking hot out here at the Dolphins training facility where we had to go in for the last series because of the heat. Donna Hopkins, Pro Football Plus, out here in Miami, getting ready for the second preseason of the game. Thanks, David, for always catching up. But tell people how they can catch up with you.
Yeah, Locked On Commanders podcast, 5 days a week, post-game lives, all that good stuff. CommanderGameDay.com, part of Sports Illustrated, and then DHarrison82 on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it.
David always has good information. More from, the preseason game as we get ready for that to see a lot more. A lot of people probably won't play much, but those first 2 series is going to be important.